Hello and welcome to Spectrum News at Night. My name is Xavier Robert, coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom. Let's take a look at the headlines. President Buhari receives Tinubu at presidential villa amid Jumat prayers. Federal government declares Monday public holiday. Plus, former U.S. Vice President Pence testifies to federal grand jury probing Trump. Details of these stories and more in a moment. First in the news tonight is a report that President Muhammadu Buhari has received the President-elect Bola Tinubu at the State House. Out to the media. Earlier, Buhari also received Governor Yahaya Bello of Kogi State. Tinubu's visit to Buhari comes less than 24 hours after the president argued the opposition's defeat in the February 25 presidential election was as a result of overconfidence. He added that the ruling All Progressives Congress APC, on the other hand, blended confidence with caution, saying they worked hard and won. While receiving the Progressives Governors Forum (PGF), led by the chairman Governor Atiku Bagudu of Kebbi State, Buhari said they were already telling their foreign backers that they would defeat the APC. Meanwhile, President Buhari has approved the rehabilitation of the dilapidated Ogoni axis of East-West Road in Rivers State. Buhari gave the approval during the groundbreaking of 3 projects: the Center of Excellence for Environmental Restoration, Ogoni Specialist Hospital, many virtually from Abuja, and was transmitted live at the venue, said the event was in continuation of the fulfillment of the promises made to the Ogoni people before the 2015 elections when he visited the area to campaign. He stated that the federal government, under his leadership, established the hydrocarbon pollution remediation project, which was overseeing the cleanup of crude oil impacted sites in Ogoni. Buhari said, aside from setting up the high prep, his administration also deployed huge funds in the construction of the multi-billion naira Boni-Bodo Road, which will link the East-West Road when completed, adding that it will boost socio-economic development. He has said that over 60,000 soldiers were recruited under his watch, noting that his administration funded the military to ensure an increase in the fighting power of the Nigerian army. Buhari said this at the Nigerian Army Trooping and Presentation of Colors Parade 2023 at the Eagle Square in Abuja. According to him, the country's interventions and budgetary allocation to the army between 2020 and 2022 alone has been able to procure hundreds of mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, troops-carrying vehicles, utility vehicles, tanks and armored personnel carriers to augment those earlier procured from 2017 to 2022. The president further noted that the army had restructured the conduct of its operations to meet current realities, saying the quantity in the northeast. He added that his administration has demonstrated commitment to increasing the strength of the armed forces in his resolve to secure the country against all challenges.
The fighting power, as a result of the procurement of equipment and mission-specific training, the Army was empowered to rejig its operations. Accordingly, the Army has restructured the conduct of its operations to meet current realities. The quantum of platforms induced into the Army since 2015 had enabled troops to take the battle to the terrorists and criminals, particularly in the northeast, resulting in the troops' morale and enhance their zeal to discharge their constitutional mandate. Furthermore, in line with my resolve to cater for the families of deceased personnel, over 50,000 children and wards of personnel who died in active service are on the Nigerian Army Scholarship from 2015.
70 years on Saturday, April 29, 2023. In a statement issued today by his media aide, Femi Adesina, Buhari saluted the entrepreneur whose charity and goodwill continue to attract local and global recognition. Buhari stated that the impact of Adenuga's visionary leadership on the nation's economy set remarkable presence in supporting entertainment, sports, and African culture within and outside Nigeria. The president extolled the philanthropist for his courage, humility, and dedication to nation building. In another development, the Vice President Yemi Osinbajo is set to depart Abuja for Nairobi, where he will. A statement in Abuja said the Vice President was expected to be one of the guest speakers at the forum. According to the statement, Osinbajo will attend the IGW of Africa Leadership Opening Ceremony and speak at the first session on Saturday. The Vice President will also join other leaders to discuss the topic, Africa's weight in the world, highlighting the continent's assets and potentials. He is also expected to hold a bilateral meeting with Ruto and the British Minister of State for Development and Africa, Andrew Michel. The forum will be attended by leaders from Africa and across the world. Away from that, the federal government has declared Monday, May 1 as public holiday to mark this year's Workers' Day celebration. Secretary of Interior Shuaib Balgore today commended workers for their hard work, diligence, and sacrifice, noting that their efforts are largely responsible for the greatness of the country and the respect Nigeria now commands in the Committee of Nations. Meanwhile, the federal government would be meted out to violators. The chairman, Task Force on Expatriate Quota Administration in Nigeria under the Ministry of Interior, Bola Ilori, said this to newsmen after he led a delegation on an inspection of some companies in Rivers State. Ilori said the idea of the policy was to ensure. He stressed that for every expatriate that comes into the country, 2 Nigerians must be employed to understudy them. Reports say expatriate quota is an approval granted to companies by the government to allow them engage foreigners with technical competence in areas that may not be readily available. Said that the Nigerian Air Force NAF will commence the airlifting of Nigerian evacuees from Egypt today. It said the Nigerian Air Force NAF, Air Peace, and other airlines have received clearance to fly to Egypt. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Janet Olisa noted that the NAF C-130H is scheduled to leave Abuja today to commence the airlifting of evacuees. The government also added that arrangements are being concluded to airlift all Nigerians that have already escaped on their own to safety in other countries neighboring Sudan. Elsewhere, the Executive Director and Chief Executive Nigerian Export Promotion Council NEPC, Ezra Yakusak, says the council has set a target to generate over $5 billion from non-oil export in 2023. The NEPC boss also disclosed that the country's non-oil products export amounted to $1.34 billion in the first quarter of the year, representing an increase of 8.50% over the $1.24 billion recorded in the corresponding quarter of 2022. According to him, the sector recorded $4.82 billion in non-oil export earnings last year, which represented an increase of 39.91% compared to 2021 and the highest value of export recorded since the council was established 47 years ago. Yakusek added that the disbursement of 308.45 billion naira worth of promissory notes to 199 exporting companies under the Export Expansion Grant EEG scheme had commenced from the 36 states nationwide as part of efforts to determine the extent of damage from the flooding of 2022 and to provide relief for affected persons and states. The Jigawa State Governor Mohammed Abubakar disclosed this to newsmen shortly after the valedictory National Executive Council meeting presided over by Vice President Timur Sibanjo of the Council Chambers of the Presidential Villa Abuja. Abubakar, who chairs the ad hoc committee on flooding, said 16 states had submitted reports showing the extent of damage occasioned by nationwide flooding during the last rainy season. They include Osun, Enugu, Akwa Ibom, Kogi, Delta, Kwara, Nasarawa, Adamawa, Gombe, Taraba, Yobe, Jigawa, Kaduna, Kano, Kebbi, and Sokoto states. On the extent of damage in the 16 states, Abubakar said 104,000 households have been affected. 172. Zambahari had directed the Minister of Water Resources, Suleiman Adamu, to lead and coordinate with the Ministries of Environment and Transportation and state governments to develop a comprehensive plan of action for preventing flood disaster nationwide in 90 days. The Red Chambers now APC to jointly take Nigeria to the next level of development. Lawan said the elections were over and what was left is governance, which is for everyone. The Senate President spoke in Abuja today while receiving in audience a delegation of the organization guests that they came at a time Nigeria is going through a transition, but assured them that the transition from one government to a new government on the 29th of May 2023 would not be an issue for the organization. Moving on now to the judiciary, where an Ondo State High Court has barred Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu from installing one Chief Alexander Kinadeju as the Alade Okun of Alade Donre community in the Donre local government area. The court, presided over by Justice Idowu Kolawole, also restrained Chief Kinadeju from representing protests in Alade Idonre over alleged plot to impose what they termed stranger as the next king of the community by officials of the State Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs. The protesters vowed that the imposition of strangers to the stool of Alade Okun would not be tolerated under whatever guise. On electoral matters now, the Independent National Electoral Commission today declared Ugonna Ozuribo Njaba Federal Constituency of Imo State. The collation officer for the Federal Constituency, Professor Rosetta Okechukwu, who announced the results at the collation office at Nwangele local government area, said the PDP candidate scored 19,971 votes. The Labour Party candidate got 9,372 votes to come second, while Harrison Nwadike of the All Progressives Congress polled 8,991 votes to come third in the election. It would be recalled that INEC had on February 27 declared the election inconclusive, saying that elections did not take place in parts of Njaba local government area. But the PDP candidate challenged the electoral umpire's decision to declare the election inconclusive. Labour matters now, where the Nigerian Labour Congress NLC has commended the federal government on the 40% salary increase for workers in the country. This was part of resolutions at the end of the National Administrative Council meeting of the NLC. The union, in a statement jointly signed by the NLC President Joe Ajaero and its Secretary General Emmanuel Obwaja also warned state council members to desist from covering state governors committing atrocities against workers in this to flagrantly defy the orders of the National Administrative Council and the Central Working Committee as it concerns the outcome of the State Delegates Conference. In education, a total of 364 blind candidates are to sit for the 2023 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination in 11 centers across the nation. The chairman, JAM Equal Opportunity Group, JEOG, Peter Okebukola, who made this known while providing the highlight of 2023 examination in Abuja, commended the JAM registrar, Ishaq Oloyede, for the special arrangement for this category of Nigerians, saying the goal of the Oloyede-led JAM was to ensure that no eligible Nigerian is prevented from taking the UTME regardless of disability. It is disclosed that from 2017, JEOG had processed about 2,600 visually impaired candidates for the UTME, with over a third admitted to courses of their choice in higher education institutions in Nigeria, mainly universities, adding that the initiative had been cited in the last 4 years in several countries as a good model for Africa. According to reports, the special examination conducted by the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board for visually impaired candidates will hold between April 27 and 29, 2023, under the supervision of the JAM Equal Opportunity Group. On security matters now, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Loki Rabo, has said national security in Nigeria is complex, noting further that the security situation in the country requires a multifaceted approach from all sectors of the society. Irabo, who was represented by the Director Training Defense Headquarters, Tanko Pani, spoke at the opening ceremony of a 2-day workshop titled Use of Broadcasting in Complementing the Military in Conflict Mitigation and Conflict Management. The defense chief noted that an all-of-society approach is required to end the insecurity belittling the country. He highlighted some security challenges faced by the country in the past decade to include terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, communal clashes, oil theft, piracy, drug and human trafficking, illegal, unregulated and unreported fishing, cyber crimes, amongst others. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Police Service Commission, Solomon Arase, a former Inspector General of Police, has announced plans by the Commission to set up a complaint response unit parallel to the existing Police Complaint Response Unit under the command of the Nigeria Police Force Headquarters. Arase made this known during separate meetings with officials of the civil society organization Clean Foundation and the national leadership of the Nigeria Union of Journalists in Abuja. According to a statement by the spokesperson for the PSC, Ikechukwu, Arase said a police force that does not connect with the public or respect human rights will find it difficult to succeed, noting that the Commission would do everything possible to still to come in the news. ExxonMobil reports record profits of $11.4 billion. Do stay with this.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors for your desired one and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
will bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigerian, from issues on politics,
Hello, Nigeria. I remain committed.
security, education, health, lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyeken every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Good morning, Nigeria. Year after year, they have informed, educated, and entertained us. When you needed information, knowledge, or an escape.
From generation to generation, the Nigerian broadcasting industry has worked tirelessly to serve you.
And now, this service will finally be recognized.
Come May 17th this year, broadcasters all of Nigeria will gather at the Hotel and Suites for the maiden edition of the Nigerian Broadcasting Awards, an award ceremony set to reward hard work and excellence in the broadcast media. Voting starts on 20th April and ends on 4th May 2023. Visit www.tnbawards.ng to vote now. They've served and they're still serving. It's time we say thank you. This award is organized by the Broadcasting Organizations of Nigeria, Bonn.
Thanks for staying tuned. Now to Africa, where rival factions of Sudan's military have agreed to renew a 3-day ceasefire shortly before it was due to expire. The extension for another 72 hours follows intensive diplomatic efforts by neighboring countries as well as the US, UK, and UN. Meanwhile, there are continuing reports of heavy fighting in the capital, Khartoum. Reports further say the previous truce allowed thousands of people to attempt to flee to safety, while dozens of countries have tried to evacuate their citizens. Almost 2 weeks of fighting between the army and a rival paramilitary group have reportedly left hundreds dead. In a related development, fighting raged in Sudan today despite rival forces agreeing to extend a truce aimed to stem nearly 2 weeks of warfare that has killed hundreds and caused widespread destruction. In the war-ravaged western Darfur region, at least 74 people were reportedly killed in just 2 days of bitter urban battles that broke out this week in the city of El Geneina. According to reports, black clouds rose over the capital Khartoum as foreign nations scrambled to organize mass evacuations of their citizens, with Turkey's defense ministry today reporting one of their military transport aircraft had come under fire. Meanwhile, there have been multiple truce efforts since fighting broke out on April 15 between Sudan's army, led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces RSF, commanded by its former deputy and fellow coup leader Mohamed Hamdan Daglo. Meanwhile, UK says Gall's Lever, its ambassador to Sudan, has been relocated to neighboring Ethiopia after it temporarily closed its embassy in the conflict-riven East African country. The British Foreign Office said in a statement that from Addis Ababa, 6 flights had evacuated 536 British nationals from Sudan, but there has been criticism of the slowness of the UK government's evacuations compared with other Western countries. In the meantime, doctors in Sudan say at least 74 people have been killed during 2 days of fighting this week in the Darfur military group. The Rapid Support Forces (RSF) have been fighting each other in different parts of the country, including the capital Khartoum. Meanwhile, both sides in the war are accusing each other of launching attacks. There is no ceasefire in parts of Khartoum and the western Darfur region. Recall that a UN peacekeeping force pulled out of the area 2 years ago, leaving people vulnerable to attacks by the RSF. Elsewhere, Coast Guards have recovered the bodies of 41 migrants off the zone. He added that Tunisian mortuaries were now running out of space and the authorities were struggling to contain the surge in attempted crossings. Meanwhile, the North African country has now taken over from neighboring Libya as the main embarkation point for Europe-bound migrants. On a foreign scene, the island's defense ministry today said a long-range Chinese combat drone capable of carrying a large weapons payload has circled Taiwan. Democratic Taiwan lies under constant threat of an attack by Beijing, which views the island as part of its territory. Meanwhile, Taiwan's defense ministry said it detected 38 Chinese aircraft, including a TB-001 drone nicknamed the Twin-Tailed Scorpion, around the island between 6 a.m. Thursday and 6 a.m. Friday. According to a map released by the ministry, the drone's circling flight path saw it cross the median line, an unofficial boundary dividing the Taiwan Strait to the island's south, before flying around its east coast and returning to China. Still on the foreign scene, Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva today decreed 6 new indigenous reserves, the first after a dearth of such expansion under his resources on these islands. Considered by scientists as a bulwark against Amazon deforestation, a major challenge in the fight against global warming. Meanwhile, Lula signed the official decrees on the final day of a gathering of indigenous people from around the country in the capital, Brasilia. In the meantime, former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence appeared before a grand jury investigating former President Donald Trump and his role in efforts to overturn the 2020 election. According to reports, Pence was inside U.S. District Court in Washington for more than 7 hours. The former vice president's appearance before the grand jury comes as he is exploring a possible challenge to Trump for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024. Security was beefed up at the federal courthouse in Washington, and a bomb-sniffing dog was spotted in the hallway. Trump, who announced late last year his bid for the White House for 2024, was recently indicted in a separate probe in New York over alleged hush payments. In the meantime, U.S. has announced plans to open new migrant processing centers in Colombia and Guatemala as part of efforts to reduce undocumented immigration. Reports say the processing centers will allow successful applicants to enter the U.S. legally and improve their access to assistance such as refugee resettlement processing and family reunification. U.S. officials also agreed to take a number of those applying. The U.S. also announced plans to double or triple the number of deportation flights to some countries at the end of COVID-era processing rules in May. Still on the foreign scene, Pope Francis has reportedly arrived in Hungary today for a 3-day visit likely to be dominated by the war in Ukraine, his first full trip to the country since he became Pope 10 years ago. and he will be meeting with nationalist Prime Minister Viktor Orban. The 86-year-old Argentine pontiff will only stay in the capital Budapest during his trip due to his fragile health a month after being hospitalized for bronchitis. Reports say both men are expected to hold a peace talk in relation to the war in Ukraine. On Saturday, the Pope will be meeting with the poor, homeless, and Ukrainian refugees, and will also hold an open-air mass in Kossuth Square on Sunday before his departure. According to reports, Francis is the second Pope to visit Hungary after John Paul II made trips in 1991 and 1996. In the meantime, Russia attacked cities in a wide act across Ukraine early today, killing at least 19 people. This is according to local officials. Ukraine said it downed 21 Russian missiles and 2 attack drones for a highly anticipated offensive against Moscow's forces were nearly complete. The barrage of almost 2 dozen missiles overnight ended a weeks-long pause following the repeated Russian strikes that had aimed to paralyze Ukraine's energy grid during the winter months. And now it's time for the latest business and stock market stories. We have Blyden Okem standing by.
Thank you, Xavier Roberts. Good evening. It's business news, and my name is Blyden Okem. In the news, ExxonMobil reports record profits of $11.4 billion. All Jan, ExxonMobil's profits more than doubled in the first 3 months of this year, helped by the increased demand for oil and gas. The U.S. energy firm said cost-cutting measures also contributed to its record $11.4 billion profits. The jump came despite falling oil prices. Has also reported an increase in its profit. It made nearly $6.6 billion between January and March, up 5% from the same time a year ago. Otadala has reportedly sold his 2.47 billion shares in transnational corporation Transcorp to Tony Elumelu, bringing an end to the power play between the billionaires. According to multiple sources, Elumelu allegedly at 300% above Transcorp's market value as of Thursday, according to reports. This implies that each share was bought around 12 naira 5 kobo, around 12 naira 50 kobo, compared to Thursday's closing price of 3 naira 12 kobo per share. Last week, it was reported that Otadala bought 2.45 billion shares in Transcorp as of April 19 to take up a 5.52% stake in the firm. He later acquired an additional 228.38 million shares on April 20th to increase to 25.2%, an equivalent of 9.99 billion shares. This led to reports of power play between both billionaires for the control of Transcorp, where Elumelu serves as chairman. To the international affairs. Airlines exchange rate has surged from 582 naira per dollar to 610 naira per dollar, signaling an immense and eminent increase in international affairs ticket. The surge in rate is attributed to an accumulation of trapped funds by foreign airlines, which now exceeds $700 million. The rate has increased twice in the past 2 months, rising from 460 naira per dollar to 551 naira per dollar in March, and further to 610 naira per dollar in April. Airlines trapped funds have surged from $744 million of the week, and the benchmark O'Shea index climbed 167.63 basis points to close at 52,403.51 points, representing a one-week gain of 2.33%. The current market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange as 28.5 trillion naira in aggregate. 106 listed equities participated in trading, ending with 24 gainers and 27 losers. Sovereign Trust Insurance led the gainers with 10% share price appreciation, closing at 33 kobo per share. On the losing side, Curtis came out last with an end-of-day price depreciation of 10% at 2 naira 25 kobo per share. Access Holdings recorded the highest volume of 82.8 million traded shares. This is all on business news. I'm back to Xavier Robert for the rest of the news.
And thanks, Blyden. Still to come in the news. Leclerc beats Verstappen to pole position in Formula One. Let's stay with us. Many thanks for staying tuned. Now to health, where this is TB in the state. The call was made by the Director, Department of Public Health, Ministry of Health, Dr. Christian Tetsola, in Asaba during a one-day training workshop for journalists and media workers by the State Ministry of Health in collaboration with its technical partners KNCV and Breakthrough Action High Dimension in the state. He noted that there was an urgent need to mobilize committed efforts of all stakeholders to spread awareness and educate the people on the likely dangers posed by the airborne disease. He said that TB, if detected early, was treatable, but for ignorance and lack of awareness, many suffer and die from the disease. Dr. Tetsola said the campaign against TB the people in utilizing public health facilities in the state. According to him, most people shy away from undergoing tests and treatments regimen that would aid in early detection and check the spread of the disease. In the meantime, the Anambra state government says malaria-related under 5 death rate has reduced from 77.8% to 14.3% from February 2022 to February 2020. Residents to always make use of mosquito-treated nets, clean their environments, as well as clear bushes to prevent malaria. He also advised residents to visit hospitals for proper diagnosis and treatment of malaria, noting that the state government had subsidized the cost of treatment, especially for children. In sports, Ferrari's Charles Leclerc became the first non-Red Bull driver to take a pole position this year with a stunning lap at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. According to reports, Leclerc beat Red Bull's Max Verstappen by 0. Hamilton took 5th ahead of Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso. Meanwhile, Hamilton's Mercedes teammate George Russell failed to make it into the final session and will start 11th. So in sports, the Philadelphia 76ers are still not declaring Joel Embiid will be available for Game 1 of their conference semifinals starting on Monday due to a sprained right knee, an opportunity for rest ahead of their next series against either the Boston Celtics or the Atlanta Hawks. Reports say the 76ers center is yet to practice ahead of Game 1, and head coach Doc Rivers said he was undergoing doctor's examination on Thursday. Embiid appeared banged up during Game 3 against the Nets, taking a series of falls before missing Game 4, which the 76ers won 96-88. Meanwhile, Trae Young's game-winning three-pointer clinched Atlanta's 119-117 win on Tuesday, extending the Hawks-Celtics series to a sixth game and allowing the 76ers more time to recover after their sweep. So let's sports events. According to basketball's governing body FIBA, Germany will hold the women's version in 2026. Qatar hosted the Men's Football World Cup in November-December and will now stage basketball's showpiece tournament for the first time. All matches will be held in the Philippine capital, Manila. Meanwhile, the Philippines, Indonesia, and Japan will host this year's World Cup from August 25 through September 10. On entertainment news, Nollywood actor Yul Edochie has officially broken silence on the death of his son Kambi about 1 month after the 16-year-old passed on. In a tribute on his verified Facebook page, the actor said his late son made his mark despite that he lived for 16 years. And lastly, on entertainment tonight, Nigerian filmmaker Kemi Adetiba has returned with 3 new projects following the release of her last project titled King of Boys, The Return of the King in 2021. The filmmaker, who teased her forthcoming projects online, named them to be King of Boys 3, To Kill a Monkey, and Welcome to the Fourth. This is first mention of the latter, but Adetiba announced the third part of her blockbuster series, King of Boys, earlier this year. That's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You've been watching Spectrum News at 9. My name is Xavier Robert, wishing you a terrific weekend. And good night. Bye-bye for now.